Hi guys, it's James from Twisted Assisted here. I'm just making something up for the TA custom shop, and I thought why not kill two birds with one tulip and make a video of it, and then we can discuss swapping out factory standard scales with brass or copper scales. So I have here in my hand an off the peg tulip. This one is the satin black G10. Here we are. And what we're going to do is we're going to pimp this by just swapping out scales, replacing the G10 with copper. And this deserves its own video for a reason which I will mention later. So we're only going to need one Torx bit for this whole operation, a T8. Let's get right to it. Take this out. I'm going to undo the pivot here. Just pop that there. I'm going to undo the rear screw, which is going to release the rear part of the knife and the pocket clip. There we go, and this is just going to come apart. We'll take off and put to one side the G10 scales. Liner out of the way. We're going to remove the knife from the pivot, knife blade from the pivot, and we're going to take off the back spacer. That just leaves us this barrel screw at the back, which is, I guess you could call it an internal standoff that holds together the rear of the knife. Let's try taking that off. Sometimes they can be a little bit stiff, these screws, which is why I've got my wrench handy here in case we needed that. Going to take off the pivot. And then the knife is stripped down to its component pieces. Now, here's the important thing. We're going to take the factory supplied pivot and we're going to put it over there because we're not going to need that anymore. We will be using this special pivot, which is special in as much as it is shorter, very slightly shorter than the factory supplied pivot. This is because brass and copper scales are fractionally thinner than the G10 or carbon fiber scales. So these require a special pivot, which are included with the scales when you buy them. Okay, so that is the only difference. So let us reassemble the knife with the copper scales. We're just going to slip the liner in there. Then we're going to pick up the back spacer, locate that pin there. And then we're going to drop in the little barrel screw, which has gone somewhere. Where are you? There you are. Okay, we're just going to hold that together with our thumb. Going to take one of the screws and just hold in. Just retain the back spacer like that. Not too tight, you can tighten it all up at the end. There we have it. Let's put in our slightly shorter pivot. I'm going to locate that through the hole. There we go, with the flattened off part, the D part, facing downwards. There we are. Let's start by popping a washer, one of these cage washers. Let's get it the right way round. There we are. And then we can just simply place the knife blade over the pivot. You can see this pin here, that's an internal stop pin. It's machined out, and there's a really clever little part of the liner there, which is just rounded off where the pin rests, thus stopping the blade. Okay, let's put back on the cage pivot. Let's get it round the right way. There we go. Okay, now it's time to put on the other half of the liner, which has got, you can just see the detent, one of the double detents that hold the knife open or shut. We're just going to slide that over the pivot, locating the D shape there. That's fine, that's all in there now. Now the last part of the operation is just to slide the liner across until it locates, and then we can secure the pivot. Let's do that. You can still use the male part of the pivot. It's just the other part of the pivot that we're using a slightly shorter version. Okay, let's tighten that up, not too tight. Now all we have to do is put back on our pocket clip. Let's do that. Okay, that's biting. Blade is centered. No blade play. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to give the screws a quick tighten. There we go. Done. Now, if we were to use the factory supplied pivot designed for the G10 and the carbon fiber, if we would try to use that to secure copper or brass scales, then you get a bit of blade play because the pivot is too long. So please ensure that you use the pivot supplied with the scales, and then your knife, your tulip, will work perfectly as intended. There we go. It's got a beautiful amount of weight to it now that it's got the copper scales. I'm going to get this photographed and get it popped up on the custom shop. I hope you guys have found this video of interest. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.